Hello, everyone, and welcome to my reviews of the Star Wars Expanded Universe. Today, I'll be reviewing the Darth Bane trilogy. Because currently I'm about to read The Labyrinth of Evil, which I'm headcanoningly fitting after season 6 of the Clone Wars, but before season 7 of the Clone Wars, and also kind of ignoring that one episode with Sifo Dyas because this book also kind of deals with that. So I'm just gonna kind of ignore that. I still think you could kind of fit that book in with it and make it work. Also, it's James Luceno, who, after I'm done talking about Darth Plagueis, you'll see why I think that James Luceno is he's now one of my favorite authors, and I'm gonna have to go check out his other books that don't have anything to do with Star Wars. I mean, in the future, because right now I need to go through the Star Wars stuff. But I do want to go through his stuff at some point because the way he writes dialogue, in my opinion, is incredible. But we'll get to that. And it's been a while since I listened to the Darth Bane trilogy, so forgive me. But the Darth Bane trilogy. Now, for those of you who don't know, there's a book called Revan, if you are more of a reader than a video game person, which chronicles the events of the same story in Knights of the Old Republic, which is a Star Wars video game that came out when I was too young, sadly. But I did get my chance to play it, and while it was certainly dated, it was a dated game, but and I'm kind of worried that Disney's gonna like make a movie out of it. Which, if they followed, the events of the game and just made it a little bit more cinematic and none of the clunky, same looking BioWare designs, then I'd be all for it. But if they do make a movie, I'm almost positive it won't be as good. But in Knights of the Old Republic, there's a guy named Revan, and he's a Dark Lord, and he helped destroy the Mandalorians in the war that was going on between the Mandalorians and the Jedi suck, because they're super dogmatic, and we'll talk more about that in Darth Plagueis. But those events happen, and you find out in the video game that you are Darth Revan, and that's super crazy, and if you didn't want spoilers, that game has been out since 2003. It's your fault. You've had the time. But the events of Darth Bane take place a couple hundred-ish years after the events of the Old Republic, or Knights of the Old Republic, because there's two different Old Republics, because the Old Republic with the Clone Wars is also referred to as the Old Republic, but whatever. Yeah. There's also stuff with Tales of the Jedi that's prior to that and stuff, and Nagashadow, but that will have to be for a different time. Though I did watch motion comics on YouTube that I found, and it was good stuff. Like, I would pay money for it in the future when I have time for that. But anyway, on to Darth Bane. So the first book is really about Bane becoming who he's supposed to be. The first book, by the way, in the trilogy is called Darth Bane: Path of Destruction. And in it you learn that Darth Bane, he goes by that name because of something that went on in his childhood, which, if you want to find out about that, you have to read the book. But I thought that was so clever. Like, just reading it, like, I thought that was such good writing. Like, when I was reading or listening to it, and I listened to what he said, because they never explicitly go, this is how I chose my name of Darth. But it's just kind of, he's just kind of, lamenting about his past or whatever, and just mentions, like, what his father would call him. I'm not going to get into it, but you want to know more? Read it or listen to an audiobook. But I thought that was really cool, like how he got his name, which they never explicitly like shove in your face, but I thought it was really good. Eventually he finds the Sith. Now, here's the thing with the Sith. They're kind of stupid. Ever since the farthest back you can go with the Sith, there's been an all-out war with Jedi versus Sith, like, all the time. Big giant battles and stuff, and it just never works out. And the Sith themselves always turn on one another because dark side. And so Darth Bane decides that no, this is not right, because he finds ancient Sith documents and stuff, and he's like, no, the only way for the Sith to work is not to be democratic, not to like be equal. That's stupid. We can't be equal. There has to be one ultimate presence that is the master. in the apprentice to crave the power of the master, and to one day, when the apprentice has surpassed the master, to challenge the master to combat and take him out. So he created the rule of two, where there must only be one master and one apprentice. We get on to the book 2 of Darth Bane, which is the rule of two, and he gets his apprentice, Darth Zana. Now, Zana is one of... I know about Mara Jade, and... Sorry, I thought I heard something. I heard about Mara Jade, and how I'm going to get to meet her and read about her in the future, and I'm super excited to learn about her, because from what I found on YouTube, and it sounds like people think that Mara Jade is one of the best, period, in all fiction, one of the best female protagonists of all time. And, I'm not super feminism or anything, but, I like strong female women that can kick butt, as long as it's not shoved down my throat that they're so amazing because they're a woman. And if you're a dude, you're not on equal terms with a woman, you suck and you can go kill yourself. I don't like that in movies. With the left today, it frustrates me. Because why do I have to be lesser to you? That's not equality, that's inequality. If it was really equal, you wouldn't make the guy seem stupid or any lesser. You would just make the woman and the man seem equally cool. But anyway, as for Darth Zana, she's super fascinating, and I really enjoyed her in the book. I thought she was a fantastic character, and I was interested to see what would happen in the next book. But it's mainly about them and her growing in the knowledge with Darth Bane, and being his apprentice, and other stuff. I don't want to spoil it for you, because I want you to experience it for yourself. But overall, it was a really, really good book, and I enjoyed it a lot. And though none of the books in the trilogy ever hit me as hard as Path of Destruction. I think Path of Destruction is the best in the entire trilogy, but all of them are good. And then we get to the final one, which is Dynasty of Evil, and that one gets, I will say, at the very least, that there is some conflict between Bane and Zana, and they do eventually duel it out, as the Rule 2 says is a necessity. He also gets certain armor. I don't know if that was in the last one, I kind of forget, but that was cool. The way it worked was interesting to me. But then we move on to just 30 years, maybe, something like that. It has to be a little bit more than that. I don't know. Now we're getting a lot closer to the events of the Phantom Menace. And this is the book Darth Plagueis. Now, what I love about this book, and I love about James Luceno as an author, because he's the one who authored this book, the way he writes dialogue, I think, is superb. Because there's not that much action in the book. There is action, and when it happens, it's serviceable. I don't think it's anything noteworthy. I mean, even a children's, not children's, a young adult novel like Percy Jackson, I think, has better action scenes than Darth Plagueis. But that's not really what that's about. It's about knowing about this Darth Plagueis that we only slightly heard about in episode 3, when, Sidious does, "Have you ever heard the tale of Darth Plagueis the Wise?" But we get to see a younger Sidious. We get to see the inner workings and the grand plan, the grand design of Order 66, of the Clone Wars, of everything leading up to the Empire's eventual rise. And just being able to learn more about Sidious as a villain was super, super interesting, because he's so interesting. And everything that Darth Plagueis teaches him, and the way he says things, is also super interesting. There's a whole paragraph, and it's before the Sith, this is paraphrasing, they fought in the open, they fought out loud, and it was war, where we used to wear armor, but now we wear cloaks, and we hide in the shadows. Instead of fighting the Jedi with a weapon, we will destroy them through contagion, through corrupting it from the inside. We are the Phantom Menace. It was something like that. I'm It's a lot different in the book, but it was just such good writing. The book had me pretty much hooked throughout the entire read. And it no lie, it legit makes episode 1 better. Like, the movie's not any better. The movie is crap, right? It's not directed well. The acting's kind of flat, which is weird because episode 1 has such good actors and they're just not utilized very well, which is sad. But there's a bunch of politics that just makes no sense in the first movie. It's just there, and they don't give you any context, and it really doesn't make sense. But this book, which you can't really use a book to make a movie better, and I get that. The movie is not just inherently better because of the book, but the book just makes some of the political things make a little bit more sense, so you're willing to go, okay, that doesn't sound so stupid now, and you're willing to, like, let it go because you read that book. That was super great, and you're willing to sit through Phantom Menace a little bit more. I mean, Jar Jar's still a piece of crap, and of course you still gotta deal with Jar Jar, but overall, I enjoyed, because in fact, I used to put episode 2 and episode 1 on the same caliber, like just garbage, whereas 3 I thought was genuinely like a good movie, for the most part. Of course, there's still hiccups. But now, episode 1 and 3 are like... episode 3 is still, like, there. Episode 1's, like, right there because of the book. Episode 2 is still a piece of garbage. But I still gotta sit through it because I'm a fan. But, overall, if you want to know more about Sifo Dyas, if you want to learn more about Count Dooku and kind of what turned him to the dark side, if you want to know more about Sidious, about Palpatine, Sheev Palpatine, then it is a book that I highly recommend. If you are a Star Wars fan, you need to read it. If you're a fan of good writing, I recommend this book. I genuinely think it's some of the best writing I think I've ever witnessed. Maybe I'm giving it too much praise, but, you know, I'm only 19. I haven't read every book in the world, but it was really good. Like, I didn't expect it from a Star Wars book. I don't know if that makes sense, because I also thought the writing in Darth Bane was really good, but I like the Darth Plagueis book even more. It also helps you that it doesn't really, you don't need Darth Bane or the Old Republic stuff, but they do reference a lot of stuff from those books and from those games. So if, like, I didn't read the Darth Revan book, I played the video game and watched a Let's Play of KOTOR 2, and then I listened to audiobooks of Darth Bane. And so while I didn't read the novels, I still, every reference I got because I'd play the games at the very least, or watch the Let's Play. So if you want to enhance your experience, that might do it for you, because they will make reference to those characters and events. But overall, it's a very good read, and I highly recommend it. And that's it for... Usually these are only going to be on one book, so it'll be less scatterbrained. But I didn't start doing these like right after I finished reading them. I was going. But I decided now I should do it before I read anything else. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Not too much about religion in this one, or putting a religious perspective on it. Though I will say, the whole thing with the Jedi, and I think the overall flaw of the Jedi, which I will talk about in other books, probably Labyrinth of Evil as well. But like with sin goes into our desires and our wants and our evil corruptedness, right? And the dark side's kind of like that too, because you kind of just let your emotions flow, like no matter what they are. And emotions are not inherently bad. Like they can be a good thing. It just depends on how you apply it. The problem with the Jedi, they just tell you don't have any emotions. Don't get married. Don't fall in love. Don't feel fear. Like, it's hard to not feel those things. And instead of helping someone cope with those problems and be able to deal with them, you just say, block it out. That doesn't help. And so I think the Jedi are inherently flawed in that sense, and their arrogance. But we'll probably get into that more in Labyrinth of Evil. But I think the dark side is a good allegory for sin. Though I think the light side's also a cautionary tale, kind of like the Buddhists said of being like Zen with everything. Because there is a balance that can be found. And what do you know? The chosen one in balance. But there is a balance that can be found between the two. And, you know, I I haven't read the Thrawn trilogy yet. I haven't read those future books yet, but I do know that Luke Skywalker gets married. And you know what? He doesn't turn to the dark side. But he isn't exactly a hardcore Jedi like in the Old Republic. He's a Jedi as I think they should be, dipping his toes in both light and dark without moving too far in either direction, because I think both will lead you out of balance. But we'll get more in that in other stories. But yeah, overall, fantastic reads, well worth your time, and that's about it. May the Force be with you.